Saturday. I learned about this only last few days, but whenever I hear about something like this, and if I can set some time aside to make a presentation, then I will. On my left is Glenn Swoboda. He was one of the parade marshals for Parent March on Washington. It was a 3-day affair, May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Many of the people who spoke here earlier who were in the audience came to that event. We had over 100 people. We lobbied Congress for an entire day. We had planning sessions. On the 3rd day, we had a march. We had a police escort all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue. At one point, we had all 6 lanes of Pennsylvania Avenue reserved for the need for our federal government to start investigating these family courts. Because it's more than just what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is principally the symptoms of the bigger problem. Now, many will tell you you need to go to state court. It's a state matter. Others will tell you it's a federal matter. The way the court system works in New York, it's heavily complicated. On my right, I have Rick Sanzone. He joined up with me recently because he found out what we were doing online, and he wants to get involved. Sadly, what we're experiencing out there, and I've been at this for some 14 years, is the one and outs. There's people I know. Glenn, you go back, what, 1992? Let's have a hand for Glenn Swoboda. That's a long time to be in this movement. I mean, I hear stories from people, they're just a few days, a few weeks, and they're already, losing it, 10, 15 years ago, I had everything going for me. I had multiple properties, yacht on the lake. I had 2 beautiful daughters. I still do, of course, but I had it made. As a lawyer practicing, I won big lawsuits. I was featured on 60 Minutes. More Than Safer drove to my law office to interview me. Front page New York Times, some of the lawsuits I won hundreds of thousands of dollars, always representing the little guy against the system, and knowing, because everybody told me, that my day was coming. I said, I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not afraid. And then I took up this cause. And today, I don't get a call from my daughters. They suspended my license indefinitely. I think I'm the longest suspended attorney in America, some 10 years without commission, not even charged with a crime. No child protection report. Nothing. They've got nothing on me, and yet they keep me in this perpetual state because what they tell me, and it's this court, this court, it's in the building here. They do have 2 courthouses down here, and the High Court of New York is over here, but the appellate division is over here in the Abram building. And there, the ethics lawyers told me that the judges said, well, okay, he's paid his child support, because originally he refused to pay it as a protest. People do those sorts of things. Susan B. Anthony refused to pay her fine. Martin Luther King said, I'm not coming out of Birmingham jail. We've waited 300-400 years for this. I set a similar precedent, but they don't see it that way because it's all about the money. And so I set out to reform this system, and for 10 years they've been pounding on me, but I'm still standing. And I don't know how long I'm going to keep it going, but I know, and I think there's a faith behind all this. I know that Rick and his wife are saying there's something bigger happening here, and I'm going to believe there is. As much as I am the doubting Thomas from time to time, I'm a deeply spiritual person, and I don't think that I was doing too well, and maybe it was time to say, take your skills and apply it to the people who truly need you. And so I did. So what is the problem? What is occurring? Well, I filed, like what we did in Washington with Dramatic. We met with a lot of legislators. We converged on Congress. We had a candlelight vigil for people who are committing suicides. One gentleman and his wife and his entire family were there because they lost a 2.5 daughter because of this, a 2.5-year-old daughter. So this is an epidemic. It's not a minor matter. And it's something where we can't stop doing this. We have to grow the numbers. This place should be crowded all the way to that building, and we should have media all around us.
We're gonna do it. Starts here. Starts here.
It's really a shame because I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the New York court system, and then I'm going to conclude. You go to these courts because that's where we resolve our problems. Without the courts, what do we have? Anarchy. We have tyranny, which maybe that's the way it is already. But when you go in these courts, we're talking about family court in New York State. It's a very complicated court structure. And what I want to do is read from the opening of my lawsuit, which was filed only a couple weeks ago. We haven't really made it public yet, but I want to read the opening segment because this comes from your state's top jurists who preside right here in Albany. And it opens up like this, because you need to know what your court system is truly about. You go hire lawyers. You do the playbook. They love it when you do the playbook. That's money for them. Get mom and dad fighting, and we can keep this going forever. And what does mom and dad say? I'll spend every last dime for my children. That's how they got you. And it is. It's a scam. It's not about the best interests of the children. So I open my lawsuit in the following manner. This comes from our state's top jurors. You need to know this. You need to hear this. Because when you criticize the courts, not only are you not alone, you are more accurate than you know. In her 1999 State of the Judiciary address, former New York Chief Judge Judith Kaye declared the system of trial courts in New York State to be, quote, absurdly complex, difficult to understand, hard to navigate, and a burden to administer, end quote. Now, if the state's top judge is telling you this, what do you expect your lawyer to do? What do you expect when you go as a pro se litigant to do? If they don't understand and can navigate through their own courts, how are you supposed to do it? And these courts are designed to serve you. Paragraph 2. 20 years later, in a similar address, New York's current Chief Judge, Janet DeFiore, made a more compelling condemnation of that trial structure and a call for constitutional reform, even though one had been voted down in 2017. In her short tenure thus far, the state's top jurist had initiated reforms which have brought no relief to those victimized by this structure. On June 19th, 2017, this is paragraph 3, the New York State Bar Association weighed in. They issued a report supporting a constitutional convention based on 11 trial court structure, which it compared to our largest state of California, having twice the population and a single trial court. The report chairman decried this constitution as a, quote, 52,500 word behemoth filled with minutia and obsolete provisions and even sections that the U.S. Supreme Court has declared unconstitutional, end quote. 4. In 2009, this absurdly complex trial court system grew even more complex by the legislative creation of, quote, support magistrates, end quote. In effect, this created a 12th trial court functioning concurrently with Supreme and family courts. Unlike judges of the latter, support magistrates are not elected or publicly vetted for their qualifications. They are screened and appointed administratively with only a 3-year minimum of lawyer experience. Now, I'm setting out to try to reform this trial court system simply to make it more accessible, user-friendly, and affordable by folks like yourselves. If the trial court system isn't functioning properly, then well, I guess I can't tell you exactly what my legal conclusion is there, but I can say this. If you read this, we need to support it. Because what they're doing is they're simply sending us from one court to the other, and there are all kinds of money being made. At one time, my case, custody support and divorce, was in 3 different courts. At the same time, 2 of them with judges presiding 60 miles apart, in Syracuse and Herkimer. Now, how can you make sense out of a court system like that? It all comes down to money, folks. It's called Title 4D of the Social Security Act, the Child Support Standards Act. State courts, the states, they get billions of dollars in funding, incentive funding from the federal government based on the size and number of support orders they issue. Now, what does that tell you? Doesn't that make them biased? I mean, if your performance is measured by the highest and the most people that you throw in jail effectively, then you get elevated. Isn't that a biased court system? Isn't that institutional bias, which is what I've been arguing, and which I maintain is the problem. They're not going to give up this money. The more people they can throw in jail, the more money they will make. It's all about the money, folks. So we have to band together like this as often as we can. I'm hopeful that this time I'll be successful with this. It's a shame when the federal courts, which have the highest duty, who created these courts to protect our federal constitutional and civil rights. And what do they tell us time and again? Well, it's the domestic relations exception. It's abstention. We have to defer to the state courts because they're the experts on this. You just heard what the experts said. Because it's a delicate matter. And then we have same federal judges making statements like this. And Judge Vitagliano in Tate versus Powell. He closes this after he dismisses a case and sends the people back to family court. Here's how he describes that highly sensitive and delicate family court. Quote, lastly on the field of battle. And then he dismisses the case. field of battle? I thought this was a delicate court system. They're steamrolling over us, folks. It's a very serious matter. These are your children and mine. That's what we're all about. Thank you for being here. God bless the people who put this together, and let's keep this movement going.